I am your host, Chris Maselli, with another episode of the podcast dedicated to your Colorado Avalanche. And with me today is King Dawit from milehighsticking.com, and he will be with me for the duration of the episode today. Day 2 of our prep week. If you didn't listen to yesterday's show, I had Will Scouch from Scouching, and we kind of discussed some of the prospects in the Avalanche system. And today, King and I will talk about kind of like the main storylines. He does, like I said, he writes for Mile High Sticking. So we're going to kind of get into what to expect in terms of the big storylines coming out of the Colorado Avalanche camp. Before we get to King, follow the show on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, on Instagram, search for Locked On Avalanche, and send any questions, comments, concerns, and or opinions to lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. All right, so if you are watching through 9 News, you can see King is with me already. So let's bring him into the fold and kind of get some updates on how you're doing so far this year, 5 days into a brand new year. How's things going for you so far today, sir?
5 days? Are we at 5 already?
When this comes out, it will be 5.
It'll be 5 days. Okay.
Yeah. So how's it going so far into the new year?
Not bad. I'm for the most part excited for some NHL hockey. Yeah.
I think most of us are. I think we're itching to get started on an NHL season, especially when you have a team like Colorado is that is expected to do some special things for this year.
That might help a little.
That usually does help
a little bit.
So, all right, you write for Mile High Sticking, correct?
Correct.
Yep. So, any new articles you have kind of coming down the pipeline that we should kind of be on the lookout for that are maybe coming up soon?
I have something that should be out tomorrow, or I guess maybe today when this comes out.
Right.
And it's going to be kind of a breakdown about who's in our conference division.
Oh, nice.
Just like a little breakdown, team by team, highlighting the good parts, the bad part. I mean, good parts is obviously that we have all 3 California teams.
Mm-hmm.
Bad parts is Pietrangelo is still in our division somehow.
Very true. Very true. All right. So we can be on the lookout for that. That's good. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the division? Do you think, like, I've talked about it quite a bit, and I think it's the weakest division, which obviously helps the Avalanche in terms of seeding, but might not help them in terms of preparation for the playoffs. What's your take on their division?
The Avalanche got very lucky by who's in their division because they could have gotten Dallas and they didn't. So you have a very strong 1-2-3 with the Avs, Vegas, and St. Louis. Like, barring any, I guess, circumstances, those are probably going to be the top 3 teams.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
And who do you think is going to take that 4th spot? If you had to guess preseason, what's your prediction on that?
It's tough. It's very, because you have Arizona. I mean, like, even though Taylor Hall didn't necessarily play to his full extent last season, you still lose Taylor Hall in a group on Arizona that isn't necessarily the best group of forwards.
Sure.
But then you have Darcy Kemper,
who can keep you in some games.
Very much so.
Exactly. So you're thinking Arizona.
It's going to be a toss-up between Arizona and Minnesota, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because Minnesota, they have Kaprizov coming in. They still have a solid core, but Arizona has Darcy Kemper.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So when it comes down to if you're kind of, reading the tea leaves and what will push a team ahead, usually comes down to goaltending.
Pretty much.
So, yeah. All right. I agree. All right. So lots to get to with the Avalanche. The not preseason. I don't know. There's no preseason. Training camp, I guess.
Training camp
is underway. Lines have come out. And, this is all, we know Jared Bednar is going to change things up. Maybe not. Maybe what we see right now will be what we have for game 1. but you know he's going to change things up as the season goes along. What do you think of the lines as they are, as you've seen them now? Do you think that will stick for most of the season? With, I think the big thing that everybody sees is Landeskog down to the second line and Burakovsky up to the first line. Do you think that sticks for game one and into the foreseeable future, or is this just training camp and we're just seeing what works?
I think it will. I think having Burakovsky with Rantanen and McKinnon worked very well in the playoffs. It was one of the Avalanche's strongest points in that first round. Obviously, I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm hoping we'll find out what's going on with that group of players and if they'll be able to play. But even still, Burakovsky is a great match for Rantanen and McKinnon. You have like that chemistry there. I think you could see it mixed around a bit as the season gets going, but I think Burakovsky, I think he's going to be staying on the top line.
I think he is primed for a great season, Burakovsky. I don't think enough people are really kind of paying attention to him. People are kind of always looking at, McKinnon and Rantanen and guys like that. And yeah, I think he will benefit immensely from being on that top line. He's got one season under his belt with the Avs. He's more comfortable with the team. You heard all last year that Nathan McKinnon was saying how he was telling him to shoot more. I think now he's more comfortable shooting more. Maybe like your first year in a new uniform and you're playing with an all-world athlete, even though he's telling you to shoot, you still might be maybe not so trigger happy. But maybe now this being 1 year removed, I think he's going to have a fantastic season, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. You could see just so many times, especially the Arizona round, just so many times how Burakovsky was getting assists on like McKinnon goals and like Rantanen goals. The chemistry's there.
Yeah.
It'd be ridiculous to break it up.
Yeah, I agree. I do. And I do think that Jared Bednar is not, like I said, he's not afraid to switch up lines. And with this season being the way it is, 56 games, you don't want to get off to a slow start. So if for whatever reason they do, not that they're losing games, maybe he's just not happy with maybe the pace or something like that, he's got no problem moving Gabe Landeskog back up to that top line for a couple shifts.
Oh, easy.
And infuse some life. You know what I mean? Like he has all of these options at his disposal. It's crazy.
It's crazy just how much the Avs wingers on the second and third line get slept on, because you have guys like Nichushkin, you have, like you said, Landeskog, all these guys that could easily fit up there depending on what situation it is.
Right. Definitely.
There's just so much depth there. Donskoy.
Yeah. The list goes on and on. We've heard from training camp that, well, at one breath we heard Jared Bednar say everybody was healthy, and then we heard 5 guys were scratched because of what's the term that they're using? What's the big term that they're using?
Undisclosed?
Unfit to play.
Unfit to play. Thank you.
And there's 5 of them. I know Grubauer is one. Landeskog is another. Do you know the guys that are
those 2? I know Eric Johnson's on the list.
Johnson is on the list.
There's 2 I'm missing.
Yeah. But regardless, what do you make of that? Do you think this is COVID related, or do you think this is, because that's a very broad term and they don't have to go beyond that. That's all they have to say. And, guys like us will sit here and do a podcast about what we think it is. So anything else that you're hearing on that end?
I really hope it's not, and it's none of our business really for us to know, but there's a part of me, because a lot of these guys had injuries last season. So it could be a reoccurring thing, and it could be just like even with Grubauer, where he had the surgery and then now he's coming back and was supposedly healthy. So it could be precautionary. It could be precautionary related to COVID. I'm not sure. Like there could be a couple of factors, but a lot of these guys had recurring injuries, so it could likely be that.
Yeah. And like you said, could be anything at this point in the game. Mm-hmm. But because we just get that little unfit to play, we have no clue what it is. So
yeah,
I don't not worried about it right now. I don't think anybody should be really worried about it. If it goes on and on and on, then, and if you're paying attention and they haven't come back in a couple weeks, then, maybe something to consider long-term, but I don't think that's going to happen right now.
No.
Yeah. Speaking of Grubauer, I think a big thing that was kind of going around Avalanche circles, at least in the fan base, was bringing it. At least the fan base wanted to see a goalie come in, and Sakic said that's not going to happen. So pretty early on in the offseason, he stuck to that, and Grubauer and Francouz are the tandem in goal. Do you think they can hold up for an entire season? Because injuries have been a thing for them, for both of them. And I think they're a good duo, but they have to get over the injury hump. Do you think that they can do it in a season when games are constant? There's not a lot of breaks in the schedule.
The thing with Grubauer is he's a fantastic starter. Like, he's the perfect starter for a team like this. You don't necessarily, it would be nice to have a Vezina nominee or like a constant guy like that. It would be rock solid, but Grubauer is great when he's healthy. But that's the problem, that
when he's healthy.
And Francouz as well, like, he was able to play when he was healthy. And as much as Hunter Miska, I guess, is getting slowly, potentially NHL ready, like, we'll have to see. Mm-hmm. If both goalies are kind of iffy, then that's a problem. And it hurt the team last season, the playoffs.
And I really like both of them, but like you said, you need stability at that position.
You do,
and they've given it to you in small doses, and in those other doses they're hurt. And I really like Francouz. I think he is the perfect backup for Grubauer. But when you ask him to do too much, I just don't know if he can hold up. And after that game, the outdoor game, and when Grubauer got hurt and he took over, he was lights out. He was fantastic. So and then the season was put on pause. So we never really got to see what he could do for an extended period of time. And going into a play, because I don't think Grubauer would have came back last year.
No,
I think he was out. So we would have got to see really what Francouz is made of for the long term. Because right now I think that's suspect. Everything about the goalies right now is suspect due to injuries. It's not really due to play. It's due to injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You'd agree with that?
Yeah. The thing with Francouz is, and you saw it was in the play-in rounds against Dallas. Mm-hmm. You saw him put up, I believe that was a shutout. It might be remembering wrong. It was a shutout. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. Yeah.
And when he can stand on his head. And the Avalanche are lucky to have two goalies like they do now. Mm-hmm. But it's all a matter of if both can stay healthy at the same time.
Right. And it is a big if. I think that is the big question mark about swirling around this team heading into this season. So, all right, let's hear from one of our sponsors of today. Are you a gambler?
I'm not.
Okay. So I try to be, but I go in knowing that I'm terrible at it.
Well, times depending on the time.
Okay. Do you like put anything down on like the Avalanche, knowing that they're the favorites?
I might, depending on who our sponsor is.
Well, you don't have to tell me who you put it with, but in the future, BetOnline AG is our sponsor for betting online. Lots to bet on right now. The NHL season is around the corner. Basketball season is in full swing. It's the postseason for the NFL and for college football, where betting is usually off the charts. Do it at betonline.ag. If you sign up today for a free account, you use the promo code Locked On, and you get a 50% welcome bonus. So put $100 in your account, and they give you an extra 50. It's a pretty sweet deal. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use that promo code Locked On to get 50% more on your first deposit. BetOnline.ag. All right. So I had mentioned that Grubauer got hurt in the outdoor game. And surprisingly, it seems like the Avalanche are going to get another outdoor game in February. Didn't see this coming. Didn't see this on the radar. I thought, all outdoor games were just going to be scrapped for the year. And they technically were the ones that they had scheduled. But they implemented 2 games in Lake Tahoe, Avalanche and Vegas being one of them. What do you make of this? Do you think this is a good move? Do you think this, because you're not going to have fans,
right?
So what do you make of all this?
I heard a lot of people upset at the teams that they picked, and they were saying like, "Oh, if it's in Vegas or if it's in Lake Tahoe, why should it be the Avalanche? It should be the Kings. It should be the Sharks." No one wants to. I mean, except for those cities. I mean, I'm not gonna take on their fans. No one else wants to see those teams. They're not good. Right. You have 2 of the best teams, not only in their division but in the league. Do you want that? This is a perfect matchup. It's not like when Chicago was playing in an outdoor game every season or something like that. These are 2 of the best teams in the league head to head.
Right.
And they're going to be like playing each other, 8 times a season. Mm-hmm. This is a great game. Like it's like Philly, they're playing Boston, and that's just Boston, which is fine. But this is 2 of the best teams head to head. This is a perfect outdoor matchup.
I think the only team that has a right to be upset is St. Louis, because this is, like you said, this is a top heavy division with Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis. So, one of those teams has to be the odd team out, and it just happens to be St. Louis. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't keep it, rivalry between Colorado and St. Louis within the normal divisions. But I got no problem with the Vegas-Colorado matchup. Like you said, they're going to be going at each other 8 times during the season. It's going to come down to those 3 teams. You're 100% right. That's what, at that point in the season, we're going to be approaching 2 months into the season. That's what people want to see. They want to see the top of the standings teams. No disrespect to the Kings, and I like the Kings. I think.
The Kings definitely.
I think the Kings can make some moves, but I don't think people really want to see Kings versus Ducks type of outdoor game. You know what I mean? People want to see Nathan McKinnon on display. They want to see that stuff.
And the best thing about it is, as much as I love to go on here and say, "Oh, the Avalanche are going to win the outdoor game," I don't know, and that's great. Yeah. That's a cool thing.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
That way you can get. I mean, mind you, if last season can tell us anything, you don't know who's going to win the outdoor game. Thank you, Tyler Toffoli.
Yes. Well, and that's the other part of it is the Avs are 0-2, right?
I believe so.
They've had 2 outdoor games, yeah. And they lost the first one to Detroit.
Right.
Because that game was played on my birthday, and they gave up a goal. I think it was in the last minute or something like that. It would have went to overtime.
That has not been a good.
No, yeah, I mean, outdoor games have not been kind to the Avalanche, so maybe they can get over the hump, because if they don't, it's slowly turning into Game 7 for them, where they just can't seem to win outdoor games.
It's just that last minute.
It is, man. I don't get it. So when that happens, that's end of February. Shortly after that, I don't know. I don't have the exact. No, maybe it's a month or so after that is the trade deadline. I think that's early April. Actually, is the trade deadline. Avalanche typically don't do big moves under Joe Sakic anyway. At the trade deadline, and this team is, the way it's constructed is to win, obviously, a Stanley Cup. Do you think there will be any holes that they need to fill, that they'll need to address at the trade deadline, minor moves? Or do you think they could make a big splash for somebody that's looking to unload a top top talent?
I really don't think so. I think there really isn't an area where the Avalanche need to really improve. Of course, if the right player comes around and they just completely make a splash, then maybe. But I'd say something maybe like a small move. Like, I think they're going to trade a defenseman at some point this season. Basically because right now it's looking like Bowen Byram is going to make the team.
You think he will?
I think he will.
So who's the odd man out for that? I mean, I'm hearing
that's tough.
Yeah, I'm hearing Ian Cole. I don't know.
It could be Ian Cole.
Yeah,
it's tough because like with Erik Johnson, as great as he's been for the team, as long as he's been with the team, I don't think he comes back next season.
Who's this?
Erik Johnson.
You don't think?
I don't think so.
So you think they buy him out, or you think the Kraken take him if he's open to that, which he has to be? Like, so how do you think he finds his way out of Denver?
I see something like, with the Penguins and Marc-Andre Fleury, like a couple of years ago, that was a trade situation, I believe, or like where they kept him exposed or something. I could see something like that being done. He's a great guy to have in your team. It's just the Avalanche with the cap and contract years for Landeskog. It's just, it doesn't, Makar as well, just doesn't look in the books.
I mean, that's something, it's not a problem right now. Like they have a great defense as it is right now, but what they're going to do with these guys is definitely going to be something to watch because, I mean, Erik Johnson is making $6 million a year. Ian Cole's making $4.5 a year. That's a good chunk of money that you can take off the books and bring in Bowen Byram, who's making less than $1 million, and Connor Timmins, and you know what I mean? And you've saved $10.5 million. I mean, you're losing guys that are, fan favorites and, Erik Johnson, but it's you always hear it's a business. It comes down to business. It comes down to numbers. So that's definitely a storyline to watch in the future. But maybe Ian Cole a little bit earlier than that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think
the Avalanche should hold on. Like Erik Johnson, that's a no-brainer to hold on to this season. He's still, like, I guess barring an injury, he's still extremely productive for the Avalanche. He's still one of their top defensemen. Ian Cole, if he's going to be either played on the third line or benched, there really isn't any reason to keep him. There's tons of teams that would be happy to take a player like him.
Yeah.
I
think, and this going back to the trade part, and it's an all fluid situation. There could be something where the Avs suffer, a bad injury and they need to fill a spot, and then maybe they make a bigger move. Clearly, we don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, this team is just built to win, so I don't really see the need to go after one of those, a player that is put up by another team that's just looking to unload some money at the trade deadline. The Avs don't need to bite on those guys. It doesn't seem necessary.
The kind of player they would have needed to get is a player like Brandon Saad, and they already got him.
Exactly. What? So talk to that. What do you think the new acquisitions in Brandon Saad and Devon Toews bring to this team? Because it just makes them scarier than they already were.
Oh, easily. Like with Devon, was it Devon or Devon?
So
know this.
So the thing is, I would always say Devon because there's a family member, and I've said this before in the show. There's a family member in my family whose name is Devon. So I'm just used to saying Devon, but I was corrected in saying he pronounces it Devon. Don't know. I mean, I guess that. So I've tried to switch my way of saying it into Devon Toews.
Okay, I had this trouble with Zadorov.
Okay, yeah. And, there's always. I mean, it's hockey.
There's always one player,
right? The names are crazy, so you do the best you can. So
yeah,
we'll just call him by his last name, which we can all agree on is Toews. So we'll just say that. What do you think they add
with Toews? He's just a fantastic playmaker. Like his stats in the Islanders run just speak to that. I know he was playing like second unit with the Islanders, and there was a few fans, I guess, they were happy to see him go or something, but he is just a great playmaker. And if he's going to be playing with Makar, which I believe he is, that's just a great pairing.
Which, were you a little bit surprised at that pairing, that pairing came out because of how well Makar and Graves played last year? They maybe would keep them together, but that's another pairing like that top line that was kind of, had Burakovsky in that top line, which people saw that and like, oh, that's different. I think people saw the Makar Taves line and weren't expecting that because of how well Makar and Graves played. Do you think that sticks?
I think that could be a thing that's game to game. Like, you could see one game where, depending on who they're facing, where they'll stick with that Taves Makar pairing. But the way him and Graves played in the playoffs, that is just something that, like, it's like we said with Landeskog swapping him with Burakovsky. That's just something you don't want to miss. So I think it's going to be like a game to game kind of thing.
Right. I agree. And it's a good problem to have.
Oh, easy.
You can switch up these lines and you're fine. You're comfortable no matter what. So it's good. All right. Let's hear from our friends over at rockauto.com. Are you a car? You're not a betting guy. Are you a car guy?
I don't have a license, so
you don't have a license. Okay,
don't have a license.
So the answer is no. And to me, I'm not either. But I
admire a car. I can admire.
There you go. I think that's the best way to put it. Like I drive whatever I want to. I don't care. Like, just get me point A to point B. But I
can admire a good car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I live right now, it's the winter, and cars are breaking down. If you need any parts for your car, go to rockauto.com. And with the ever increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible to stock all the parts you need in a traditional chain storefront. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the counterman orders the parts on his computer, choosing only the brand his warehouse happens to carry? You have a computer and you have access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Rockauto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to rockauto.com to shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. Best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same part? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the section where they ask, how did you hear about us? So they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. All right, a couple questions. And one of them is, we got to talk about Nathan McKinnon. I haven't really talked about him at all. And it's really easy to ignore him because he's just so awesome. You just rely on him and know he's going to be out of this world. But I'm curious to see what he does this year. Because it's obviously a shortened season. I don't think that matters to him. The team is so deep. The one thing that we're hearing out of training camp, straight from Coach Bednar's mouth, is this is a deep team. This is the deepest team they've ever had. What direction do you think that brings Nathan McKinnon? Do you think his game just stays top notch in terms of points he's scoring? Or do you think he doesn't need to be the guy that they lean on all the time because they have all this other talent? It could go in any direction. I want to hear what you think.
With McKinnon, there's one thing, and anyone who's ever seen him play can attest to this. He always stands out on the ice more than any other player. That no matter what, like as many players, as much depth as the Avalanche have this season, he's always going to be a step above. That the Avalanche are like, they're basically blessed with a generational player.
Yeah, I know.
We are.
I agree. I've told so many people like that are not, real big hockey people. You turn on an Avalanche game and I won't say anything to you. Just point out who you think is the best player on the ice. And, 99 out of 100 times is going to be Nathan McKinnon. Like, he's that good. He stands out that much.
Easy.
And I think, I asked the question, but I kind of know the answer. Like, he's the type of guy that does not take the foot off the gas pedal. So I don't think he's going to look at it as like, I have all this talent behind me and I'll let them, kind of like share the wealth type of thing. I don't think he's built that way. I think he's built to just go and just keep playing the way he's playing. Who cares who else is on the rest of my roster? They'll keep up with me.
And he's lucky because, like, yeah, he has that chemistry with Rantanen, and then Burakovsky, where they'll definitely get the best parts of playing with him. They'll like rack up a lot of those points. And again, like, it's not all due to playing with McKinnon. It's just a side effect of playing with McKinnon.
Right.
But McKinnon, like, yeah, he's the kind of player where he'll make who he plays with better. And like, I think he said that Rantanen's helped him get his game better, where it's kind of like a dual situation, but he's not going to take a step back for other players. He's just going to go. I could see him in the top 3 in scoring at least.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. I think, and that's going to be year after year that he's going to be right up there with, the Dreisaitl's and McDavid's of the world. I don't see any slow in his game whatsoever. I think he's excited to have this deep of team, and he's going to put it to good use. He's not going to rely on them to, step up their game. He's going to step up his game even more to make them step up their game even more, and it's just a chain reaction of
pretty much
craziness. Yeah. All right. So Nathan McKinnon, obviously superstar, no questions about him. Going to the opposite end of the spectrum, and one guy that Avalanche fans have always had questions about in Tyson Jost. They gave him a 1-year deal, kind of like a prove it or lose it type of deal. I would take out of what they gave him. What do you think? Do you think this is, I mean, he's still a young guy. He's only 22 years old. So, do you think that he just needs some time to mature, and this will be the year where I don't want to say breaks out and has this, incredible all-star type of season, but starts to play more consistent? Do you think this is a year for him?
I'd like to say so, that hopefully it is, but based on his played last few seasons and based on who else the Avalanche have in their system, Martin Kaut, O'Connor, it just, if it's not at the level it should be, then, which based on how he's played before, it just hasn't always been consistent. I'd like to see it, and I'm sure everyone else would, but if it's just not at that level, then it's just not going to work. And it doesn't happen with every player. And it could be a situation where he gets picked up by like Kraken or by another team, but it hasn't happened yet. And if he's playing in the 4th unit and there's other players like Kaut who are basically on their way up, it's a situation where they might be getting the upper hand if he's not performing.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because if he is that, if they have him long enough and you just have to come to terms with he's a 3rd, 4th line guy, and be okay with that, I think the Avalanche keep him around. But they are so deep in their current roster and their prospect pool where he's replaceable. And I hate saying that, because he seems like a good kid, and
sure,
we've seen glimpses of, wow, like that he had a hat trick early in the season last year. Like, I think it was early November, he had a hat trick, and you're like, that's what he got that so early in the year. People were like, this is it, like it's finally clicked for him. And then he went ghost for like 12 games. So it's still that up and down with him. And like I said, if they didn't have an incredible talent pool all around him, I think they'd keep him around. But they have guys just waiting to take over his spot.
That's the frustrating part. Like, it is there. He does have the factor that can come out, but there's just been so many games where he's just been absent on the ice. And if it's a reoccurring thing, they haven't really found like a good match for him, a good place for him to be, then it just isn't going to work.
All right. I hear you. So, all right. And any other, to kind of wrap up, anything that you are looking forward to in this season that maybe we haven't touched on when it comes to the Avalanche and what looks like to be a pretty promising season for them? Anything that you're specifically looking at? Could be player, storyline, whatever.
I'm excited to see Makar again. Hopefully put up a great sophomore season. I think in that 1 year, he just rose so high in terms of the top defenseman in the league. And he just, especially in the playoff, I mean, I could talk about him in the playoffs, but obviously the regular season too.
Yeah.
He's just in the same way that McKinnon is just at another level. And I guess I'm not going to knock Rantanen, but Makar is just at a totally different level in terms of defensemen. And I think we're going to see a repeat this season.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think so. I think we've only scratched the surface with Cale Makar. I think
like a very, very tiny tip of the iceberg.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No. What do they say? Like iceberg, 10% is above the surface, the other 90 is below it. Yeah, that's exactly Cale Makar. We have not seen hardly anything from him yet, which is scary. So, yeah, man, I think it's going to be an exciting season. I wish it was your typical regular season, but I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's under the same situation, so nobody's getting special treatment in that aspect. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fun season for the Avalanche. So throw out where people can find you to follow you and on social media and stuff like that.
I'm on Twitter as K.O'Reilly. I'm very prolific, I guess. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
You can find me with my 20 tweets a day. I also produce content on YouTube as Nostalgice. And that's Nostalgise.
And what kind of content is that?
I do videos about just retro NHL stuff.
Cool.
I'm a huge jersey guy. I have right now, I think it's about 15 jerseys, definitely more on the way. And it's just like cool stuff like that. I have a video about how the Avalanche were almost the Rocky Mountain Extreme.
Yes.
Stuff like that. It's fun. Recently I just saw Aesthetics just put out a video that was pretty much a couple of mine, but like higher production quality. And I kind of thought, well, like they're the Wayne Gretzky of that kind of stuff. So
right.
Hard angle. Yeah.
All right. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you again at some point in the season if you want to come back and talk some more Avalanche. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah. One thing I can say is there is something that might be of interest to Avs fans that is on its way. Okay. That's all I can say. Something very familiar from a couple of seasons ago that will be on its way, and that's all I can say.
Okay. Keeping everybody in suspense. I love it. When can we expect it? Like a couple of weeks away?
I was hoping to announce it by today. It's still, all I can say is it's still in the works, but it's something Avalanche fans are very much going to enjoy.
All right. I mean, if that's not any reason to follow you, we'll if we follow you on Twitter, we'll be able to know what this is.
You will.
Okay. So
I can promise that.
All right. Awesome. All right. So that wraps up day 2 of our prep week. Tomorrow, we'll be back with Ian Comist from Avs Insider and be talking about some of the expectations for the Avalanche as a further season and individual players. So tune in to that tomorrow. One last time, King, thank you very much for coming on today. Very much appreciate it. And yeah, definitely have you on again sometime in the future. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.